Friendsify, you want to watch super hit movie Blacklight in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, West Film Friends, in today's video. The movie we're going to talk about is called Blacklight. I am also going to give you all the information on which platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. This video is produced by West Film. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I'm going to tell you apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film storyline, star cast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will give you a small review of the story of this film. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. That's why I request you friends to watch this video till the ends. So let's start the video. Blacklight is a 2022 ICANN Australian action thriller film directed and co-written by Mark Williams. The film stars Liam Neeson as a brooding FBI fixer who becomes involved in a government conspiracy. Emmy Raver-Lampman, Taylor John Smith, and Aidan Quinn also star. Blacklight was released in the United States on February 11, 2022 by Briarcliff Entertainment. Unfortunately, it struggled both commercially and critically. Despite having a production budget of $43 million, it only managed to gross about $16 million worldwide, making it a box office bomb. Critics were harsh on the film, and it received overwhelmingly negative reviews, with some calling it one of Liam Neeson's worst performances in movies. The storyline, action sequences, and overall direction were widely criticized, adding to its reputation as a low point in Neeson's career. Plot: Blacklight. Political activist Sophia Flores speaks at a rally in Washington, D.C. about women's and racial equality. That evening, she is killed in a deliberately planned hit-and-run outside of her home. Travis Block, a Vietnam War veteran, works off the books for FBI Director Gabriel Robinson as a fixer. After completing one mission, he tells Robinson he wants to retire and spend more time with his daughter and granddaughter, but Robinson is reluctant to let him go. Instead, he is given a new assignment to bring in undercover FBI agent Dusty Crane. However, Crane goes rogue and contacts a journalist, Mira Jones, claiming to have information about Flores' death. Escaping several times from Block and the FBI, Crane arranges to meet Jones at a museum. Block follows Jones to the meeting, but Crane escapes again. Crane tells Block that Robinson ordered Flores' killing before he is shot dead by two FBI agents. Block and Jones meet again, and she tells him that Crane claimed to have information about Operation Unity, a top-secret FBI program run by Robinson that kills innocent civilians, including Flores. Block confronts Robinson about Operation Unity, but Robinson brushes off his questions and warns Block not to interfere. Jones's editor, Drew, writes a story about Crane's mysterious death using her sources. That evening, he is followed home and killed after a car accident by the same two FBI agents that killed Crane and Flores. Meanwhile, Block's family goes missing. Jones convinces a distressed Block to help her uncover the mystery of Operation Unity. He tells her that Robinson has a safe in his house with government secrets. He confronts Robinson at his house and forces him to open the safe, which contains a hard drive with information about Operation Unity. Robinson escapes with the help of several FBI agents who engage in a gunfight with Block. Block defeats the agents and retrieves the hard drive. Block and Jones review the hard drive and discover that Crane was in love with his assignment, Flores. Robinson had her killed after Crane became too attached to her. Block confronts Robinson with the truth about Operation Unity and forces him to turn himself in to the authorities. Robinson is arrested for his crimes, Jones completes her story about the government cover-up, and Block retires and reunites with his family who had been placed in witness protection but are now brought back home. Guest: Liam Neeson as Travis Block, Emmy Raver-Lampman as Mira Jones, Taylor John Smith as Dusty Crane, Aidan Quinn as Gabriel Robinson, Claire Vanderboom as Amanda Block, Yael Stone as Helen Davidson, Tim Draxel as Drew Hawthorne, Georgia Flood as Pearl, Andrew Shaw as Jordan Lockhart, Melanie Jarnson as Sophia Flores, Zach Lemons as Wallace, Gabriela Sengos as Natalie Block, Daniel Turble as Running Man. Caroline Brazier as the boss. Production. Principal photography of the film started in November 2020 in Melbourne, Australia. In January 2021, it was announced that a car chase scene would be filmed in Canberra. Mark Isham composed the film score. A film soundtrack has been released. Release. Blacklight was released in the United States by Briarcliff Entertainment on February 11, 2022. The film was released video on demand on March 3rd, while the film released on Blu-ray and DVD in May 3rd by Universal Pictures Home Entertainment. Reception. Box office. In the United States and Canada, Blacklight was released alongside Death on the Nile and Marry Me and was projected to gross $1 to $5 million from 2,772 theaters in its opening weekend. The film went on to debut to $3.5 million, finishing fifth at the box office. Overall audiences during its opening were 64% male, 83% above the age of 25, 58% above 35, and 35% above 45. The ethnic breakdown of the audience showed that 53% were Caucasian, 14% Hispanic and Latino Americans, 15% African American, and 18% Asian or other. The film finished 10th at the box office in its second weekend with $1.7 million. It dropped out of the box office top 10 in its third weekend with $878,687. Critical response. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 11% of 105 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 3.8/10. The website's consensus reads, "Turn it off." Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 27 out of 100 based on 22 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Audiences polled by PostTrack gave the film a 58% positive score, with 39% saying they would definitely recommend it. Joe Layden of Variety said, "If you approach it with sufficiently lowered expectations and have fond memories of the 70s paranoid dramas that obviously inspired director and co-writer Mark Williams, this might be your house brand jam." Frank Scheck of The Hollywood Reporter wrote, "Lacking a high concept or memorable central character, the film is a by-the-numbers actioner that coasts on its star's soulful gravitas and low-key charisma." Blacklight review. He has a particular set of skills. Skills he's acquired over a very long career. Skills that make him a nightmare for certain types of people. And when shadowy figures endanger not just his life but his family's, he needs to take up his gun, track down his enemies, and kill them if he has to. Wait, no. This is the plot for The Commuter. Let me try that again. He has a particular set of skills. Skills he's acquired over... In hindsight, perhaps deciding to review this film was a bad idea. Now, it's not just because it is a bad movie. In fact, I'd prefer it if it was blatantly terrible. At least then I'd be able to derive some sadistic pleasure from ripping it apart. But Blacklight is the worst kind of bad movie. One that doesn't even make a spectacular mess you can laugh at, but instead slowly deflates with a steady stream of lukewarm air. This makes it really hard to say anything new or interesting about the movie. I was actually working on a completely different draft before this, where I picked apart its bland characters, severe lack of tension, shoddy and dimly lit action sequences, and hackneyed plot. But then halfway through, I realized this might as well be a review for Taken 3, or Honest Thief, or The Marksman, or The Ice Road, or Blacklight. Wait, that is what I'm reviewing. So instead, let's scrap 90 minutes of writing and look at Liam Neeson. More specifically, his brand of angry daddy, Neeson kills everyone to save his daughter/granddaughter/wife/all three action movies, or Adian Catch DSGSWSAT for short. Might have to work on a better acronym. It's easy to make fun of Neeson. I mean, I had my fun in the past making fun of his movies, but at the same time, you can't help but feel a bit sympathetic for the web of typecasting he's stuck in. Now, an iconic character for an actor is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it is a massive boost in popularity. When people see the actor, they will almost always know them because of that particular role. You see people like Daniel Radcliffe or Robert Downey Jr., and everyone will immediately say Harry Potter or Iron Man. It doesn't even have to be a particular role. Arnold Schwarzenegger, for instance, was always associated with the muscular action hero with a rather comedic edge. But that strength is also the problem. It becomes very hard for those actors to break out of those images. Going back to Daniel Radcliffe, if you go on YouTube and search up any movie clips he starred in, the comment section will be flooded with Harry Potter jokes. And in other cases, actors start getting typecast based on their iconic images. Look at how Dwayne Johnson always has to be the funny, over-the-top muscle man when films like Faster show he can genuinely act. And now look at Neeson. He played the part of an angry father out for revenge very well in Taken. After that, so many of the action movies he's done has been exactly that. Just Control-CV'd onto a slightly different setting. What's strange is that, despite all this, Neeson is still genuinely good at that typecast role after all these years. Despite literally every single one of his characters being the same, I could still watch him growl at bad guys and gun them down over and over and still be entertained. He just has a certain mix of tired energy and genuine heart that you can't help but feel for whatever family he's fighting for, even if you don't remember what his family is actually like. Of course, there's still the issue that he's playing the same character over and over, to the point that it's become its own genre. I mean, look at his posters. All of them are some variation of Liam Neeson with a frown on his face and a gun in his hand. But that also means that as long as the writing or directing are not unbearable, he can produce a plethora of action movies that, while certainly not groundbreaking, are enjoyable on a lonely night when you have a pint of ice cream and nothing else to watch. It's why I had a genuinely fun time with films like Nonstop or The Commuter. But here's where we must return to Blacklight. I wasn't asking for much. Before I went in, I was expecting yet another Liam Neeson action movie. There was no way the film would blow me away, but it would keep me engaged at least through the actor. Like I said, despite the problems with typecasting, Neeson has proven his skill to somehow keep me watching him again and again. All the film had to do then was to supplement that with basic competency in action, a reasonably interesting premise, and a serviceable story. Blacklight completely fails on all those fronts. There's hardly any action. I mean, the climax is Liam Neeson in a dark house fighting a grand total of 4 guys. Look, John Wick fought 12 guys in a house, and that was just the opening action scene. This just won't do. And the plot just fizzles out with dramatically slow pacing and wrapping things up in such a sloppy manner that I thought the movie was going to transition into a surprise third act. Also, I really need to point out a specific thing for a moment. You know that effect where the shot suddenly flashes while the camera cuts rapidly between zooms and rewinds? It's the sort of stuff you'd see on mediocre YouTube fan films. Well, that is constant throughout the film. I seriously couldn't believe my eyes. Did the editors really think this would fly in 2022? They had to have known this sort of edit was far, far below the lowest acceptable proficiency, right? That's the biggest failing for this movie, really. While I am tired of the oversaturation of Daddy Neeson movies, I was willing to accept another as long as it did the bare minimum to support itself. But Blacklight puts in virtually no effort at all beyond its star. And when Neeson is the only thing carrying this film, even a strong typecast like him ends up caving under the pressure along with the rest of the film. Perhaps time's come for Neeson to hang up his particular set of skills once and for all. Another season, another Liam Neeson has skills movie. Some of the variants of his popular Taken movies, the last one, Taken 3, was all the way back in 2014, How Times Flies, have been reasonably clever and even cinematically worthwhile on a surprising level. See, for instance, 2019's Cold Pursuit. Mark Williams' Blacklight, alas, is not among them. The movie opens with a scene of a young, charismatic brunette female roiling the working class at a DC rally. They carry signs bearing her name, Sophia Flores. The actor playing her is Mal Jarnson. Given the talk she's talking here, she's obviously based on rapper Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In the crowd is a wide-eyed guy fixing his baby blues on her adoringly, apparently her boyfriend, Henstop, played by Taylor John Smith, in this scene and others looking more like a digital animation than a live person for some reason. So far, so familiar. But later that night after the rally, a shady town car driver fakes a jammed passenger side door, obliging Sophia to exit the car driver's side, and on the street she's efficiently plowed down by an SUV, whose driver shares a meaningful glance with the town car driver. One ought not have to invoke former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords to argue why this kind of torn from the headlines, or whatever it is, scenario opportunism is gross. It casts a pall over the rest of the movie, which wouldn't have much going for it anyway, even without this alpha male posturing. Neeson plays Travis Block. Writer Nick May must read a screenwriting manual stating that giving your violent hero Travis Bickle's initials is a good luck charm of sorts. An undercover, even by undercover standards, FBI guy who specializes in getting regular undercover agents out of jams. We first see him speeding to a DC-adjacent redneck white supremacist conclave to rescue an in-too-deep operative. He achieves this through legerdemain and propane and a flare. In the office of his buddy, FBI Director Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn, channeling Martin Sheen's Josiah Bartlett gone bad, tells Travis, who is also his best friend of course, "I appreciate you for making it happen." But the thing Travis most wants to make happen at this late stage in life is quality time with his granddaughter, at which his actual daughter balks. Travis's paranoia isn't good for the tot, she complains, just as the tot is opening Grandpa's birthday gift, a flashlight with a built-in taser doohickey. In the meantime, Smith's character turns out to be named Dusty, and it turns out that he too is an undercover agent, one who's about to spill to a crusading journalist, Emmy Raver-Lampman, about his and the Bureau's part in the assassination of Flores. Block doesn't buy it at first. Decades on the job, and he still believes the establishment to be essentially thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Soon, of course, the scales fall from his eyes, and eventually he must confront the man who, etc., etc. The action set pieces are perfunctory. I suppose it's commendable that they don't rise or fall to the level of chaos cinema, but by the same token, they're so lifeless you might find yourself wishing them to. And the script is, gross opportunism aside, dismally threadbare. Robinson's rationales for his illegal and evil actions don't even exist. They just are. You know, the villainous forces in 70s paranoia classics like 3 Days of the Condor and The Parallax View at least had an ethos, Donnie. Blacklight is the latest Liam Neeson action vehicle to hit the big screen, a trend that's been going on for over a decade now, and you'd think these Neeson action films would become tiring. But I say, bring them on. While Neeson has gone all over the place with his action film career since his 2008 hit Taken, Blacklight falls somewhere in the middle. More of a story about the corruption in our federal bureau than a wholehearted action thriller, it still intrigued me enough to keep my attention for the 104-minute runtime. It might be attempting to be making a statement about our political system today or even yesterday, but it's difficult to tell if there is a meaning behind it all, because whether aimed at something or not, it comes off as cliché. Fans of Liam Neeson will more likely get a kick out of Neeson being a very similar badass he's been for the past decade or so, versus people tired of the same old, same old. The only difference is he's also 10 plus years older than when he started kicking ass, but Blacklight, whether by choice or by happenstance, displays a man that's still sly, but he's clearly less vital than he used to be. Any twist the film attempts to deliver can be called out before the title even shows itself. It's not the most original plot. In fact, it simulates what has been done on procedural television numerous times in the past. There's no mystery to what's happening. Blacklight is about as straightforward as you can make a thriller nowadays, and director Mark Williams' decision to add glitch lens flare effects at inopportune times throughout the feature certainly won't be turning any heads. Liam Neeson is an action star with a particular set of skills. He can drive fast, punch hard, and emote with a depth that makes his shenanigans seem inspired by Ingmar Bergman. In Blacklight, Mark Williams' quirky yet middling thriller, Neeson plays an off-the-books operative who takes secret orders directly from the director of the FBI, Aidan Quinn, a power-mad, old-guard bureaucrat irritated that he can't profess his love for Jay. Edgar Hoover without triggering politically correct puppets. Blacklight opens with the assassination of a charismatic Twitter-hooked politician, Mel Jarnson, seemingly and uncomfortably cloned from Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York, then trots out familiar action movie characters. A plucky reporter, Emmy Raver-Lampman, smells conspiracy. A heroic G-man, Tim Draxel, runs away from cronies who suspect that he's flipped. The twist in the screenplay, written by Nick May and Williams, the director, is that the story sticks with the point of view of Neeson's naive brute, who in an ordinary film would be a no-name heavy-oft in the third act. Am I the good guy, he asks. Not really, even to his estranged daughter, Claire Vanderboom, who is aghast that her father arrives at his wee granddaughter's birthday party with a gift-wrapped stun gun, a comic gag that gets tripped up by a treacly piano score and Neeson's adamant gravitas. After that muddled early scene, the film teeters between subverting the genre and obeying convention. At least Williams displays a bit of inventive flair with novel booby traps and a chase scene that features a lurching garbage truck. The film starts with a political activist called Sophia Flores, played by Melanie Jarnson. She is talking to a group of people about women's equality, racism, etc. Your typical liberal activist. Later in the day, she is killed in a hit-and-run near to her home. That is the juice for this story. In comes Travis Block, played by Liam Neeson. Travis is a Vietnam War veteran who works for the director of the FBI, Gabriel Robinson, played by Aidan Quinn. Block is something of a fixer for the FBI director. His job is to rescue or recover undercover agents who have either been made or find themselves in a difficult-to-escape position. Block's latest job is to bring in Dusty Crane, played by Taylor John Smith. Block would rather retire and spend more time with his family, but the FBI director needs him. Dusty Crane has contacted Mira Jones, played by Emmy Raver-Lampman. Jones is a journalist, and she is told that Dusty has information about the death of the political activist Sophia Flores. Crane doesn't want to be brought in by Block and manages to escape. He arranges a new meeting with the journalist. Block follows covertly, and when he tries to grab him, Crane is shot dead. Block meets with the journalist. She fills him in on a top-secret project that goes after innocent people, including Flores. Block now has to put everything together and track down who is responsible and expose all involved. At this point, Liam Neeson goes full Taken, and you have pretty much what you would expect in a film featuring Liam Neeson. Lots of gravelly talking and a certain set of skills, and you instantly get the feeling that this is all very familiar. However, that is not always a bad thing. We all love Liam Neeson for Taken, and although he is kind of typecast in that kind of role, I really don't mind. At times it does feel like Neeson is phoning it in, but he hasn't quite gone down the Bruce Willis route yet. This is an action film, and there are some good set pieces and some good action scenes. Car chases, explosions, etc. Perhaps a bit paint by numbers, but if that is what you are looking for, then this film ticks enough of the boxes to fulfill the needs of a Liam Neeson fan. Liam Neeson, as we always note, has a very particular set of skills. It isn't just Neeson's on-screen characters that do, it's the man himself. The actor has the ability to portray aging killers with a heart of gold with aplomb. We have seen him do it multiple times, and I've noted more than once that these action thriller films need to be looked at as their own genre and on their own sliding scale. The actor's latest, Blacklight, is no different. Directed by Mark Williams with a script from Nick May and Williams, Blacklight features Neeson as Travis Block, an off-the-books FBI operative who works directly for current FBI Director Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn. Block's job is simple to describe, but difficult to execute. He retrieves agents who have gone undercover and found themselves in trouble. Why this has to be off the books is one of those things that is necessitated by the plot more than arising from any sort of logic. But that's the kind of movie we have with Blacklight. Yes, even on the Neeson sliding scale, this one lands somewhere closer to silly than successful. Block is more than just an operative, though. That would be boring. Instead, there is an attempt to round out Block by giving him a personal life. He has an adult daughter, Amanda, Claire Vanderboom, and a young granddaughter, Natalie Gabriella Sengos. Unfortunately, the relationships are not built in a way to make the two women feel like much more than a hollow attempt at depth and to raise those ever-important stakes. The same is true of Block having OCD. Neeson's character Regular talks about checking things multiple times due to the OCD. But the existence of this facet of Block is much more about his interactions with his daughter and granddaughter than the sort of significant part of his life the lip service discussions suggest it to be. In fact, when Blacklight decides it's time for the happy ending and credits to roll, any and all problems in regards to Block's OCD's effects on Natalie and Amanda are set aside. With what the movie sees as the main part of the story done, the OCD is forgotten. As ever, Neeson is game and tries to make a go of it, no matter how foolish a connected side plot with a reporter Mira, Emmy Raver-Lampman, might get, nor the presence of thorny troubles faced by a fellow agent Dusty, Taylor John Smith. Heck, Block's ability to get up close and personal with the head of the FBI multiple times despite the Crane not wanting that to happen might cause some actors to stumble, but not Neeson. He gamely tries to sell it. We might not always buy it, but Neeson absolute does what he can with the material. That said, this is also the main issue with the movie. Over and over again, Neeson is forced to try to sell things that make no sense. Neeson's work doesn't quite rise to the level of parody here, but no one else is even close, and the entire tale from start to finish almost demands it. Beyond that, there isn't a feeling that those in the movie understand the silliness of it all. It is all very straight-laced and serious, even as foolishness, such as Mira's scummy editor, Drew, Tim Draxel, stealing her story and then standing by the decision to steal it, and then suddenly apologizing, all of which happens solely so that the plot can move forward. The action sequences are engaging enough, but are neither impressive nor terribly memorable. Everything in Blacklight is shot in relatively bland fashion. Just as with the story itself, moments that feel as though they might head somewhere interesting all too often peter out before arriving at said destination. For better or worse, probably, Blacklight represents the typical sort of affair we now regularly expect from Neeson. It is full of hints of a far better, far more engrossing movie, one that doesn't come to fruition, but there are also plenty of opportunities for Blacklight to explore paths far worse than the ones it goes down. Neeson fans may get a kick out of moments, but few others will enjoy it. I'm deeply puzzled by why Liam Neeson continues to show up in second-rate action film. Now, to be fair, I enjoy him as an actor, generally. I even enjoyed Taken, as well as kind of loving Cold Pursuit. At the same time, the last decade or so of Neeson's career has been dominated by the type of mediocre action movie you'd hope he'd be above. Blacklight is sadly more of the same for him. He appears bored. While the production doesn't have much originality to set itself apart, it's all competently done, but without a whiff of passion or creativity. Rather quickly, it sinks under the weight of its own indifference. Blacklight is made to be passively consumed. It's the sort of thing you half-watch on television. That's all well and good, but this is meant to be a theatrical release, so it's wholly unacceptable. Especially when there's such a litany of Neeson action outings to choose from, you really need to go above and beyond to stand out. This film, without question, does not do that. Instead, it settles for the bare minimum. Travis Block, Neeson, is a government operative, one who knows how to get agents out of hairy situations. He's made a career out of it, while his close friend Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn, has become FBI director. Black is wrestling with his murky past, one that has estranged him with his daughter and put at risk a relationship with his beloved granddaughter. Of course, just as he's planning to get out, something pulls him back in. When he discovers a plot targeting U.S. citizens, one being whistleblown by a young agent in Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith, Block is torn between loyalty to his protege and to his country. While Dusty seeks out a journalist, Emmy Raver-Lampman, to help get the word out, Block investigates. What he finds puts himself in the crosshairs of the FBI director he once helped protect, and whom he considers perhaps his only friend. Liam Neeson is so much better than this movie. He's an expert at this kind of flick by now, so his sleepwalking through the role still has a bit of gravitas, but it's clear that he's bored. You buy him as a government fixer type, but never once does the script make his character come alive. He fares the best, however, as the likes of Aidan Quinn, Emmy Raver-Lampman, and Taylor John Smith are completely one note. Quinn at least gets a little scenery chewing, while the others are as bland and forgettable as they come. Supporting players include Claire Vanderboom, Gabriela Sengos, and more. Co-writer-director Mark Williams makes everything in Blacklight competent, but rarely engaging. Along with co-writers Nick May and Brandon Reavis, the screenplay Williams is working with periodically approaches an interesting point, but backs away immediately. Interestingly, May is a former U.S. Department of Justice attorney during the Obama administration, which makes the lack of personality here even more striking. Williams' direction is uninspired as well, doubling down on the lack of engagement and style here. It's as if they landed Neeson and figured their work was done. Ultimately, Blacklight is the type of watchable mediocrity that you'd find late night on cable and get bored with before the end. There are certainly worse films out there, but without questions, there are superior ones. Even in February, you can do much better. Unless you're a massive Liam Neeson fan, you need not apply here. Even then, there are better options for Neeson kicking some ass. As we continue our run to the end of the year, I thought I would continue my catch-up by continuing my look at Liam Neeson's After Yesterday's Memory. This time around, we have an action film where Liam is an undercover expert caught up in a grand conspiracy. So to set the scene, we open with a politician. Sophia Flores, Melanie Jarnson, is giving an empowering speech about bringing politics back to the people and stopping the cooperate interests that are disenfranchising people. Still, later that night, she is run down by an assassin. Meanwhile, in rural America, Travis Block, Liam Neeson, is extricating a deep undercover operative from a mission gone wrong. He wants to step away from this life and spend more time with his family. But one last mission to extricate Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith, goes pear-shaped, and now he is in the fight of his life. While it is a mess sometimes, there are some strengths in between all the rest. The first is Liam Neeson. While he is not given much to work with here, what he does with it works in this film. To go along with this, I liked Emmy Raver-Lampman as Mira Jones, the journalist that gets caught up in it all. Also, we get some serviceable henchmen and a bad guy that knows what sort of film he is in. The action scenes work mostly well, and hey, who doesn't like a Home Alone situation with guns? Of the many problems with this film, the first is the structure. From the first couple of minutes in, we know there is a problem, which probably goes to the very heights of power in America. However, now that the audience knows, the film takes over 40 minutes to kick into gear whilst it panders and postures around. It becomes frustrating for the audience once you have revealed your hand and spent so much time before returning to it, which means that when the film finally gets into the meat of it all, it has to rush through all its exposition. To add to this, unfortunately, you can see the places where the budget did limit them somewhat. One such example is the opening confrontation with the racist rednecks. Travis Block rigged some gas canisters to explode in one of the trailers to defuse the situation. Unfortunately, due to the compositing, if it was digital, or the way they filmed it, if it was practical, made the effect stand out as being awkward. Also, for a film set in America, this is aggressively Australian. Though I feel this is what everyone who lives in Los Angeles must go through, and let's be honest, cooking the pasta before starting the sauce is an odd choice. In the end, do we recommend Blacklight? Unfortunately, no. There are moments here where you feel like it was almost coming together into something bigger than it was. But unfortunately, they dissipate into the ether during the runtime and lead to an underwhelming conclusion. If you like Blacklight, we would recommend to you The Gray Man. It's amazing that Liam Neeson makes so many action movies since he always looks so miserable in them. Such predecessors in the genre as Charles Bronson and Clint Eastwood usually projected an air of quiet self-satisfaction when dispatching bad guys. Neeson, on the other hand, always seems emotionally pained while practicing his character's particular set of skills, as if to suggest that someone has to do this sort of thing. Even an Oscar-nominated actor, versatile enough to have played characters as disparate as Oscar Schindler, Rob Roy McGregor, and Alfred Kinsey. His work ethic, too, is admirable. He reliably pumps out one or two of these genre films every year, like a man racing to beat the clock. And since he's now 69 years old, although he certainly doesn't look it, that may be exactly what he's doing. Blacklight, marking his second collaboration with director Mark Williams, The Honest Thief, unfortunately proves one of Neeson's more generic efforts. Lacking a high concept or memorable central character, the film is a by-the-numbers actioner that coasts on its stars' soulful gravitas and low-key charisma. It offers nary a memorable set piece or resonant line of dialogue, except for when Neeson's character admits at one point, "In hindsight, I suspect I made a poor career choice." That character's name is Travis Block, which would have looked great on the covers of a series of 1960s mass-market paperbacks. Block is a covert operative who freelances for the FBI, specializing in extracting undercover agents who have gotten themselves into dangerous situations. His talents are demonstrated in an opening scene in which he rescues an agent who has blown her cover with an angry mob of white supremacists who look like they're auditioning for January 6th. Block is also, of course, a devoted father and grandfather, because what would a Neeson action movie be if he didn't also have a family to protect? His professional tendencies tend to seep into his personal life, as when he rigorously trains his little granddaughter to look out for possible threats and means of escape. He also suffers from obsessive-compulsive disorder, which benefits him in his work, but also results in such idiosyncrasies as a refrigerator filled with hyper-neatly arranged rows of fruit and beer bottles. That's about it in terms of character development. He plot is set in motion when an FBI agent, Taylor John Smith, suspecting that the agency has murdered a young anti-government activist, attempts to turn whistleblower. He also soon winds up dead, and Block finds himself collaborating with an ambitious investigative journalist, Emmy Raver-Lampman, the Umbrella Academy, to get to the bottom of the mystery. It turns out to be a secret and deadly government program dubbed Operation Unity, the brainchild of Block's good friend and boss, FBI Director Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn. The two men have a decades-long bond, having shared a fateful experience during their time serving together in the Vietnam War. Cue the inevitable car chases, shootouts, and hand-to-hand fights as Block finds himself increasingly at odds with Robinson, especially when his daughter and granddaughter suddenly disappear. As anyone who's seen a Taken movie knows, it's not a good idea to mess with Neeson's progeny. The film doesn't provide much in the way of surprises, and anyone who doesn't immediately suspect that Quinn's character is up to no good has probably never heard of J. Edgar Hoover. Strangely, Robinson seems to be the least protected FBI director in history, since Block is able to continually show up unannounced, at one point even knocking on his front door. Robinson does, however, at least prove to be media savvy, loudly complaining, "Nowadays, this country is ruled by gotcha moments on Twitter." Although Blacklight harkens back to the conspiracy thrillers of the 1970s, think The Parallax View or 3 Days of the Condor, it never achieves their level of narrative momentum or suspense. It mainly serves as a time filler until the next, better Liam Neeson action movie comes along. Quick thoughts, grade C. On the Liam Neeson action movie grading scale, Blacklight is a satisfying experience that features nothing new. Much like a Hallmark Christmas movie, which are insanely popular and trend-setting, it's wildly predictable and easy to watch. If you want to relax and watch an undemanding action film, check out Blacklight. While the 8% Rotten Tomatometer score is understandable, it's a bit harsh because the critics should know what they are getting into when they watch a recently made Liam Neeson film. Blacklight is no Taken, Cold Pursuit, or Nonstop. It's more of a Taken 2, Honest Thief, or the marksman-esque Neeson action film that can be enjoyable if expectations are set correctly. Filmed in Australia, Standing in for the United States in 2020 and directed by Mark Williams, Honest Thief, the movie tells of the story of a guy named Travis Block Neeson, who has an excellent set of skills and uses them to retrieve undercover FBI agents who have gone too far undercover and gotten hooked on drugs, money, or danger. The job takes him around the world at a moment's notice, and his crazy schedule means he's divorced and constantly being insulted by his daughter, Amanda. Claire Vanderboom, given some of the worst dialogue my ears have ever heard. I felt bad for her because her character is so one-dimensional, who won't let him visit his granddaughter Natalie, Gabriela Sangos. Block also suffers from obsessive-compulsive disorder as he does everything in threes and is constantly worried about locking doors and security. Since it's a Liam Neeson character, the guy seemingly has a heart of gold despite a shady past, and you never get the feeling that this man was ever truly bad or a terrible parent. It's all said, not shown. Basically, he's a good guy who got put in a bad situation and now is trying to atone for past sins. If Neeson was more rakish or slimy, the scenes that feature him getting insulted by his daughter would play more real. But because it's Neeson, you just want the lady to leave her nice dad alone and stop calling him crazy, which she does. Block finds trouble when a former agent Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith, watch Shadow in the Cloud, threatens to blow open an FBI conspiracy to an intrepid reporter named Mira Jones, Emmy Raver-Lampman, watch Hamilton Now. Crane's whistleblowing actions kick off a few fun car chases and gunfights with Wallace, Zach Lemons, and Lockhart, Andrew Shaw, two deadly operatives who add genuine toughness and believability to the action scenes. In the end, it all comes down to a fun gunfight inside a mansion that showcases Block using his deadly skills to maximum effect. Throw in the obviously slimy Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn, who is the head of the FBI, and you have a fun political thriller that never tries to be anything more than a movie you'd enjoy on an airplane. I don't mean that as an insult, I'm just saying that it's happy staying in its lane and giving Neeson fans what they want. Plot. A troubled off-the-books fixer for the FBI, Neeson, tasked with pulling undercover agents out of dangerous situations, finds himself in the middle of a deadly conspiracy when one such agent starts questioning the very people he's working for. Our fixer must not only track down the agent, but also find out the truth, a truth that may strain even his questionable moral code. Review. It's February, which means it's Neeson season, and this week he stars in the action thriller Blacklight from director Mark Williams, who also helmed Honest Thief starring Neeson. Sadly, Blacklight isn't much of a step up with a story that never really gets going, lacking anything memorable or exciting. Neeson is his usual appealing self, but his character Travis Black suffers from OCD, which has affected his relationship with his daughter and granddaughter. His condition made him especially suitable for his line of work as a fixer for the government. Travis wants to repair the mistakes he's made with his family and spend more time with them, but his employers don't feel the same way. The trailers made this out to be quite different from what Blacklight actually is. It looked action-packed and exciting. It has its moments, and there's some action, but stunt doubles are noticeable, and strangely, it never grabs you as a viewer. I did like the dynamic between Travis and his boss/old friend Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn, where it's not a straightforward arrangement. Quinn's steely eyes make him well cast as the antagonist, but he never gets a satisfying showdown with Travis, instead giving us an ending that fizzles out. The poster promises they're gonna need more men, and Neeson himself delivers a similar line, and yet he doesn't do much in the way of ass-kicking, and we only get like 2 henchmen for him to take down. Blacklight also has that horrible desaturation effect, so everything looks blue, making the film ugly to look at, and some scenes hard to actually see what's happening. The action is at least well executed with some fights and a few exciting car chases. We also get some shootouts, but it needed more for the finale and maybe a climactic fight, which we never get. The music score is one of the best aspects of the film, with some nice percussion adding to a pervasive sense of threat. Despite a few entertaining moments, this feels like something we've all seen before, and this isn't a movie I have any desire to watch again. Overall, Blacklight isn't a movie you need to rush to the cinema to see. It lacks any memorable set pieces, and the story takes too long to get where it needs to, making it lack thrills. It's maybe worth watching on Netflix, but otherwise, it's forgettable stuff. It's February, which means it's the time of the year for yet another Liam Neeson movie. February seems to be the month of choice for these cookie-cutter action thrillers, starring the gruff Irish-born screen veteran. Since taking off as an unlikely action hero with 2008's Taken, Neeson, who turns 70 this June, has carved out his own niche, and these movies have almost become a genre all their own. Most of these films follow a fairly familiar blueprint, and it's often hard to differentiate one from the other. Their aggressively generic titles don't help. The similarities between these movies often comes down to the ingredients. For example, Neeson's characters almost always have some kind of military or special forces background. There's often some kind of connective family tissue that's intended to raise the stakes. Although if you've watched enough of these, you pretty much know how they turn out. And there is always a call for Neeson to unleash his very particular set of skills. His latest venture, Blacklight, comes packaged with the hilariously bad tagline, "They're gonna need more men." And it's the first of two Neeson flicks set to release during the first half of 2022, the other being the Martin Campbell-directed Memory in April. His character, Travis Block, fits the above archetype to a T. He's ex-military who now works off the books for the FBI. His strict dedication to his work made him a rotten husband and father, yet he's determined to make up for it by being a better grandfather. But to no surprise, those dreams of domestic bliss are abruptly and predictably interrupted. Travis is the longtime friend and right-hand man to FBI Director Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn. The two served in Vietnam together, and now Travis runs covert missions for Robinson, pulling compromised agents from deep cover assignments. Travis is loyal, dependable, and never questions orders, which makes him invaluable to Robinson. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that Robinson is a little shady. His fanboy affection for J. Edgar Hoover is concerning enough. But there are plenty of other red flags that pop up along the way. When not secretly rescuing agents from white supremacist militias or underground terrorist groups, Travis works hard to make amends for his past failings as a father. But the OCD that makes him so good at his job has festered into paranoia, which drives his daughter Amanda, Claire Vanderboom, up the wall. From putting up security cameras at her house without her permission to teaching his granddaughter Natalie, Gabriela Sengos, to memorize all the exits in every building she enters. These scenes add a lighthearted touch, but it's hard to tell if they're meant to be played straight or as comedy. Travis's work and family inevitably collide after he's tasked with bringing in a disillusioned young agent named Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith. Dusty claims to possess damning information related to the recent murder of a fiery congressional candidate who's shamelessly modeled after AOC. Travis tries to get to Crane before he can turn his evidence over to a tenacious reporter named Mira Jones, Emmy Raver-Lampman. Robinson turns out to be involved, and he's determined to erase anyone connected, Travis and his family included. Director Mark Williams keeps things going at a reasonably good pace, but he has a hard time generating much suspense. That's because there are no big twists or surprises to be found anywhere. All of the story pieces are laid out early, and they eventually fit together exactly the way you expect them to. And while I like the idea of fearless journalists exposing government cover-ups and Travis reckoning with his government-sanctioned past, none of those angles take the story in any unexpected direction. And the movie isn't helped by its unsatisfying ending. Perhaps it's another casualty of predictability, but it's almost as if Williams wasn't quite sure how to end his story. We end up with something overly tidy, remarkably shallow, and just generally hard to swallow. It more or less just wraps things up, filling the final 5 minutes with corny dialogue and one of the worst final confrontations you'll find in a movie. Blacklight may have enough to win over the most ardent fans of these Neeson thrillers. For everyone else, this is more of the same, but with even less energy and grit. Also, and I hate to say this is a case where Neeson's age really shows itself in the action scenes. It's certainly not his fault, but in movies like this, where buying into the action is crucial, it becomes a pretty big issue. Blacklight opens today in theaters. As far as dull, generic actioners go, Liam Neeson has made some absolute stinkers. Blacklight, shot here in Australia, is another one. Risible writing, terrible acting, and a truly laughable ending, saddled with far too flash for its own good cinematography, make this film an astounding chore, with Neeson's commanding frame and voice going nowhere in this wheel-spinning, lazily concocted debacle. I would go so far as to suggest it's the worst Jerry Bruckheimer film. Jerry Bruckheimer never produced, what with its mid-2000s cinematography and penchant for laughable dialogue at the most inappropriate times. I was screaming at the screen. This was such a frustrating experience to watch. Neeson plays Travis Block, a truly block-headed FBI fixer working for the duplicitous Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn, chewing the scenery like no other, and whose continued OCD afflictions put him on the outer with his daughter Amanda, Claire Vanderboom, and his granddaughter Natalie, Gabriella Sengos. Block spends his time bringing in deep cover agents for the feds, rescuing them from typically awful scenarios, and returning them for debriefing. It's as obscure a career as you can get, although Block is quite good at it. Suddenly, he finds things a little tougher with Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith, who it appears has uncovered something fishy in the state of Denmark. Apparently, FBI Director Robinson has been doing some unscrupulous stuff behind the scenes, and the moral conflict this creates for Block brings him into the frame of betraying everything he knows. Rising star journalist Mira Jones, Emmy Raver-Lampman, is hoping to make a story out of it, but her enthusiasm and naivete put her directly in the path of national security, with only Travis Block to protect her. Blacklight is cliched, formulaic, generic, and rote. It's an immaculate Liam Neeson action film in every sense, in that it offers very little tension. Contains marginally enthusiastic action. A downtown truck and car chase through the streets of Australia's capital, Canberra, is solid but obviously filmed on a Sunday morning, and strings its basic, elementally written plot together with the kind of lumpy clag glue you'd use in a kindergarten. This is a film designed as a marketing exercise, not a creative storytelling enterprise. The tagline for the film screams, "They're gonna need more men," which is kinda accurate, but also not quite, when the sum total of henchmen thrown at Neeson's incredibly stupid Travis Block in the climactic showdown numbers 4. Yes, the number between 3 and 5, which is totally not the number of henchmen you need to take down a man of Block's impressive pedigree. The fact that the script outright states that Travis Block has never killed anyone in his job is literally kneecapped 30 minutes later when he takes on the aforementioned 4 special operative dudes late in the movie. This film doesn't know what it wants to do with anything. The whole thing is incredibly generic, and assembling this much idiocy in one film ranks as perhaps its only highlight. Characters are poorly written, terribly developed, and encumbered with graceless backstories, not to mention a malignant iniquity in terms of emotional heft. Neeson's Travis Block suffers from obsessive-compulsive disorder, something he's often used to his advantage in his line of work. But a condition that's thwarted his painfully clumsy attempts to be in his daughter and granddaughter's lives. Why they tried to give Block a redemption arc when he isn't an asshole and doesn't need redeeming, I'll never quite figure out. But here we are. His relationship with FBI Director Robinson is one of historical amenability, but riven with fractured modern politicization. The old angry "I'm done with this job" line getting a fair run in this hodgepodge screenplay. Aidan Quinn chews the scenery as Robinson with aplomb, knowing exactly the kind of B-movie schlock he's paid to appear in, and just having a grand old time running acting rings around his taller, more celebrated co-star. The familiarity with this boss-employee trope is such that the film barely even tries to hide who the big bad is. It just flat-out launches into Quinn's character operating above the law with impunity, despite all manner of head-scratching plot developments. In one scene, 4 city cops get the shit kicked out of them and the FBI can just quietly hide this from the public? Please. Half the pain of watching this is just seeing Neeson excruciatingly have to converse with actors far less talented than he. The kid playing his granddaughter does a solid job, and she seems at ease alongside Neeson, but every time Neeson's voice slips into a cheeky higher register, all I hear is good cop from the Lego Movie. Every conversation with Block's daughter is an examination on the problems of OCD and how it manifests to destroy relationships. Honestly. What horseshit. Every scene involving Emmy Raver-Lampman's Mira Jones is a torture test in not wanting to throw something through the screen. Honestly, the whole talented yet inexperienced newspaper reporter shtick wears itself out quite quickly, and Raver-Lampman's performance is unable to elevate the thinly written role above near parody. Oh, and Taylor John Smith's character? Dusty Crane? About as meaningful as the black suitcase in Pulp Fiction, he's a MacGuffin and consequential to the plot in only a limited capacity, and yet he's prominent throughout the first half. The problem with the film is that the characters and plot all seem to be acting independently from each other. There's no connective tissue between anything going on, and this isn't helped by a dearth of expositional visuals to help propel the government bad guy subplot around which a lot of Blacklight's story hangs. The film posits that Robinson is assassinating members of the public in order to further his agenda, save for the jarring opening sequence. The import of this command isn't felt at all in the movie, hanging like an albatross around the plot late in the game, but insufficiently depicted to engage the audience. So what? We ask, wondering when Neeson is going to start punching people. It's trying to be a political thriller, an espionage mystery, and a journalistic diatribe for freedom of the press. It fails utterly to be any of them well. Watching the elderly Neeson stumble through city streets, or, as we call it, ambling, it's fast becoming apparent that the status of action star has now passed the Irish thespian by. Even the fight sequences and helter-skelter bombast feel jaggedly slow motion as the editing tries to cut around the fact that Neeson can't quite move like he used to. Blacklight is a film running on empty, half-concocted fumes. It's a desperately dull, anemic affair with generic characters, writing, and terrible performances as far as the eye can see. Formulaic to a degree that would make even Steven Seagal blush, Blacklight's retrade script offers no thrills, very little intelligence, and a high degree of all bark, no bite action. It also contains one of the most laughably bad conclusions to a film's main bad guy ever. Have you ever wondered if Liam Neeson could ever just growl a villain into submission? In Blacklight, that question is answered. God, how terrible for all involved. Blacklight is forgettable shit that doesn't deserve to waste your precious time. A Liam Neeson thriller from 2022 is considered the worst movie of his illustrious acting career on Rotten Tomatoes. Since making his film debut in the 1978 drama Pilgrim's Progress, Neeson has become one of the most recognizable leading actors on the planet. Neeson's most notable films expand across all genres, including the action thriller Taken, 2008, the romantic comedy classic Love Actually, 2003, the first Star Wars prequel movie, Star Wars Episode I: The Phantom Menace, 1999, and of course, Steven Spielberg's harrowing Best Picture winner Schindler's List, 1993, which earned Neeson his first and only Oscar nomination. Neeson's celebrated action films have cemented him as a main figurehead of the genre, alongside actors such as Jason Statham and Tom Cruise. Neeson has made several career changes throughout his acting career, shifting seamlessly between virtually all genres, which has made him one of the most versatile actors working today. Neeson recently reprised his iconic role as Qui-Gon Jinn in an episode of Disney's highly anticipated Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and also made a surprise cameo as himself in the fourth and final season of the acclaimed FX series Atlanta. Neeson was also a major part of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, playing Bruce Wayne's early mentor, Ducard Ra's al Ghul. Despite having a high audience score on Rotten Tomatoes of 82%, Liam Neeson's 2022 action thriller Blacklight is the worst-rated movie of his career among critics. Blacklight has just an 11% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 27 Metascore. The disparity between the audience score of 82% and the critic score of 11% for Blacklight is alarming, which raises the question of whether Blacklight truly is the worst movie of Neeson's career. Blacklight is also currently trending on Hulu, indicating that there is more positive feedback and genuine interest among viewers than movie critics. It does, however, have just a 1.9 rating on Letterboxd. Neeson certainly has a notable pool of poorly rated films in his filmography, which consists of more than 140 movies and television series across his 46-year career. Some of his other poorly rated movies on Rotten Tomatoes include his most recent ones, with 2022's Marlowe and Memory, which both came out in the same year as Blacklight, both receiving critic scores below 30%. Taken 3 2014 and The Nut Job 2014 are not too far off from Blacklight's 11% either, with both earning a Rotten Tomatoes score of just 13%. Neeson makes so many movies on a consistent basis that it's no surprise some of them turn out to be duds. The massive gap between Blacklight's critic score and audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is the largest one of Neeson's career. The consensus among critics is that Blacklight is virtually unwatchable, while audiences are much more forgiving and supportive of the Neeson film overall. Robert Abel of the Los Angeles Times described Blacklight as the kind of low-wattage, paint-by-numbers thriller that usually signifies a perilous turn toward the action purgatory that is cheap, direct-to-nowhere fare. Barry Hertz of the Globe and Mail wrote, "You will walk away with many questions. The first one being, can I please have my money in 107 minutes back?" From looking over many of the top critics' reviews of Blacklight, the common thread between them is a shared frustration with Neeson seemingly settling with another uninspired action flick. Neeson has demonstrated just how profound and talented of an actor he can be, and many critics would rather watch him be challenged once again as the lead in a great story rather than continue to cash in on the success of his previous action hits, like Taken and The Grey. Even if most critics' frustrations with Neeson's career choices nowadays fuel their reviews of his repetitive thrillers, it's evident that his fans are still enjoying them. Despite most critics disliking Blacklight, it's not truly the worst movie of his career, even if it is somewhat a copy and paste of his previous action hits. Neeson's worst movie is arguably The Other Man, 2008, a mystery thriller that stars him alongside Antonio Banderas and Laura Linney. Written and directed by Richard Eyre, notes on a Scandal, Iris, The Other Man was torn apart by critics and audiences alike, critiquing the film's waste of a great and talented cast with a convoluted plot and confusing pace caused by poor editing. As a whole, The Other Man is universally one of, if not the worst Liam Neeson movie, although Blacklight is not far from it. Synopsis. Travis Block is a government operative coming to terms with his shadowy past. When he discovers a plot targeting U.S. citizens, Block finds himself in the crosshairs of the FBI director he once helped protect. Not only is director Mark Williams attempting to make a career out of helming late-career Liam Neeson action thrillers, starting with 2020's Honest Thief, while also serving as a producer on many that came before, he's also trying to do so by painting moral shades of gray on his protagonists. It's right there in the title of their first director-star collaboration, an entirely forgettable experience. But for Blacklight, the duo seems prepared to double down on such character flaws. And intriguingly so, as during a chunk of the first act, there is a bait-and-switch sense that Liam Neeson is a straight-up antagonist, while the real hero will be a whistleblower, trying to spill the beans on FBI Director Gabriel Robinson's Aidan Quinn secret operation, which consists of murdering various public figures to maintain political power under a facade of democracy. To clarify, Liam Neeson's Travis Block is unaware of Gabriel's harsher crimes. However, he works as an off-the-books fixer, extortion, blackmail, and more, but never murder, for covert agents that either become mentally undone or stray away from his plan. Travis is indifferent to whatever these moral implications are, only concerned with making a living in the wake of a tragic, dark past, because what is a Liam Neeson character without one these days? And spending time with his granddaughter Natalie, Gabriella Sengos, whenever his daughter Amanda, Claire Vanderboom, allows, which is not much considering the nature of their fractured relationship and Travis' paranoia of danger and being watched. The latter is something that drove his wife away from both of their lives and something that he habitually passes on to Natalie through highly questionable actions, whether it be teaching her how to count the number of exits in every environment, encouraging gun usage, or purchasing her a taser for her birthday. The good news, for the sake of Natalie's psychological well-being, although it may already be too late, is that Travis is so inundated with work that he rarely has time to see his granddaughter, sometimes forgetting about commitments, the usual cliches. Sometimes he juggles both responsibilities, such as fixing undercover agent Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith, the far more interesting one here, who winds up handcuffed inside his car while picking up Natalie from school. Unsurprisingly, Dusty escapes, and as it turns out, might be trying to do the right thing by getting the attention of a journalist. Mira Jones, Emmy Raver-Lampman, has a gut feeling that Dusty should be trusted and heard out, which conflicts with Travis's job and, of course, the entire house of cards Gabriel has built. The story also mixes up an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez type politician murdered in a hit-and-run during the film's prologue. Rather than use any of this to push into how this government manipulates fear into the eyes of anyone advocating for justice, it's dropped chiefly until it's time for a convenient plot reveal. It's all window dressing for the usual standard car chases and shootouts, which are below average and rarely entertaining. Far more disappointing is that for a movie that depicts Travis engaging in some despicable behavior early on, he digs up personal information about Mira's past for threatening purposes. Blacklight, which Mark Williams also has a story credit for, alongside Nick May and Brandon Reavis, with the former writing the screenplay, is all too quick to redirect this moral alignment, shoving aside other potential heroes in the process, so Liam Neeson can save the day while promoting the necessities of guns and whatnot for self-defense. This is also something that feels directly at odds with his real-life beliefs, which he is apparently comfortable throwing away for a paycheck in another generic thriller. Yes, Liam Neeson has revitalized a career off of shootout adrenaline. Still, none of them have felt so uncomfortably pro-gun and fear-mongering propaganda-leaning as Blacklight. It's a movie that ends with Travis jokingly but earnestly desiring to teach Natalie about guns and explosives. Blacklight is as irredeemable as the FBI director's actions throughout. If Blacklight were any more generic, it would have a barcode instead of opening credits, and jettison its title in favor of a stenciled label, Liam Neeson Thriller. But if you approach it with sufficiently lowered expectations and have fond memories of the 70s paranoid dramas that obviously inspired director and co-writer Mark Williams, this might be your house brand jam. That might not be enough for you to rush inside a multiplex to catch this time killer during what likely will be a fleeting only-in-theaters run. Blacklight probably will play best when it reaches its natural habitat on streaming platform menus. Continuing his seemingly endless run as the action hero equivalent of Dad Jeans, Neeson brings his reliably effective world-weary gravitas to the role of Travis Block, a freelance fixer for FBI director and longtime buddy Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn. Block is frequently tasked with extracting deep cover agents when their cover is blown, or perhaps more important, when they've spent too much time in the darkness to know their way out. An early scene illustrates Block's efficiency as he saves an operative from a gun-wielding mob of what appear to be Jan 6 cosplayers before they can do her grievous bodily harm in a trailer park. Great solution. Distract the thugs by blowing up some of their trailers. But he's more seriously challenged when it comes to retrieving Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith, an agent who's taken to self-medication with pills and booze in a vain attempt to salve his guilty conscience about misdeeds in the line of duty. Not that Crane wants to be extracted. During the movie's opening minutes, we see him smiling approvingly while attending a campaign rally for a congressional candidate who seems to take political inspiration and fashion tips from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. When said candidate meets an untimely end after misplacing her trust in a rideshare driver, Crane is devastated because while he was on an undercover mission to keep tabs on her, he, get ready for it, fell in love with her. So he reaches out to Mira Jones, Emmy Raver-Lampman of the Umbrella Academy, reporter for a Washington, D.C.-based news website, to spill the beans about a dark conspiracy identified as Operation Unity. Not surprisingly, the FBI chief wants those beans to remain unspilled. Meanwhile, Block is seriously considering getting out of the extraction business, if only to spend more quality time with Amanda, Claire Vanderboom, his divorced daughter, and Natalie, Gabriella Sengos, his precocious granddaughter. Trouble is, Amanda is frankly concerned that her father's paranoia might be contagious. She still recalls the days when he would run background checks on her friend's parents, thereby making him a bad influence on her daughter. Block, of course, disagrees. A little paranoia is healthy. And besides, he's already taught Natalie a lot about checking perimeters and looking out for strangers. Family concerns must take a back seat to professional chores, for a while at least, when Robinson ignores Block's request for retirement and sends his fixer after Crane. One thing leads to another, at a satisfyingly brisk pace, it should be noted, and Block eventually unearths, with a little help from Jones, the dark truth about Operation Unity. But wait, there's more. He does this without suffering the same fate that often befell inquisitive protagonists in the aforementioned 70s dramas. This is a Liam Neeson thriller, remember? Working from a script he co-wrote with Nick May, Williams adds a few idiosyncratic elements to this warmed-over stew of high-speed car chases and high-casualty gunfights. Block isn't merely paranoid, he's also obsessive-compulsive, a fact sometimes played for laughs, such as when he meticulously sorts his shoes in his closet and orderly arranges beer cans in his refrigerator, and other times not. His condition evidently has enhanced his ability to even the odds when outgunned. Jones is aggressively dedicated to truth, justice, and the American way, but she's not blind to the career enhancement possibilities of writing clickbait. And you have to give Williams and Neeson this much. Even they recognize that the actor may be approaching the end of his shelf life as an action hero. Crane actually runs out of breath during extended foot chases, and when he isn't quite able to best Crane in a fistfight, the younger man mocks him. "You're slipping. You're losing your grip." Not yet. But soon? It's February. That means it's time for cold weather and snow, groundhogs having their day, and Liam Neeson coming out with yet another kick-ass action thriller. Do not confuse the term kick-ass with good or even watchable. Back in 2008, Neeson, then primarily known as a serious actor who occasionally made forays into popcorn territory, The Phantom Menace, Batman Begins, decided to broaden his repertoire by playing the hero in Luc Besson and Pierre Morel's Taken. 14 years later, Neeson has opened no fewer than a dozen of these movies, in which he typically plays carbon copies of the same character with different names, all but a few in the January-February time period. It has gotten to the point where February seems incomplete with one of these Neeson paydays. But, my God, have they started to stink. To start things off by damning with faint praise, Blacklight is better than Neeson's last effort. The Ice Road, which had at one point been intended for a February 2021 release until it went the streaming route and was pushed into June. And it's certainly no worse than either The Marksman or Honest Thief. Sad to say, those are the last 4 movies for which Neeson's name has topped the marquee. He must be concerned about fattening up his bank account. This subgenre, which offered a few guilty pleasures in the beginning, has degenerated beyond the point of reclamation. And Neeson has given up the pretense of acting. His performance in Blacklight, no idea why it's called that, is on par with that of Steven Seagal in his prime. Come to think of it, they're playing pretty much the same characters. Blacklight begins with a leftist speech given by Sofia Flores, Mel Jarnson, a rather transparent representation of Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. She is cheered on by her boyfriend Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith. Not long after, she is run down in the street in a hit that's made to look like a hit and run. Dusty is guilt-ridden, blaming himself for her death. He's actually an undercover FBI agent who was working on a dark ops project for FBI Director Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn. When he goes rogue and threatens to spill everything to the police, Robinson calls on his secret weapon, Travis Block, Neeson. Block works for Robinson, bringing in agents from sticky predicaments or who have lost their way by going too deep in their undercover roles. In this case, however, he can't get to Dusty before Dusty talks to a reporter, Mira Jones, Emmy Raver-Lampman. What Block learns as he digs deeper into the situation makes him question the ethics of Robinson's methods and the legitimacy of his own part. So, of course, the bad guys start chasing him, and when they threaten his wife, Amanda, Claire Vanderboom, and daughter, Natalie, Gabriela Sengos, perhaps even going so far as to kidnap them, he starts shooting. Blacklight is one of those cheap-looking movies where the action sequences are perfunctory and devoid of any sense of suspense or tension. The storyline is by the numbers, and one would have to be a moron not to figure out who the big bad guy is from the beginning. Actually, I'm not sure it's supposed to be a surprise. The story plods along and the resolution is confusing, unsatisfying, and profoundly idiotic. Much of what happens during the final 20 minutes makes no sense whatsoever. The kidnapping is a red herring. It's as if director Mark Williams, whose previous effort behind the camera was Honest Thief, one of those other Neeson as a tough guy movies, and writer Nick May realized they didn't have an ending and cobbled together something on the spot. Every time Neeson makes one of these worse-than-generic thrillers, publicists roll out the Taken comparisons. It's not that Taken was a great film, but it was popular and is generally fondly remembered. But these movies have become so stale and tasteless that with each new one, Taken starts to look better and better. In terms of storytelling, excitement, and overall entertainment value, Blacklight is a black hole. Travis and his boss, SL, old friend Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn, where it's not a straightforward arrangement. Quinn's steely eyes make him well cast as the antagonist, but he never gets a satisfying showdown with Travis instead, giving us an ending that fizzles out. The poster promises they're going to need more men, and Neeson himself delivers a similar line, and yet he doesn't do much in the way of ass-kicking, and we only get like 2 henchmen for him to take. Down Blackall also has that horrible desaturation effect, so everything looks blue, making the film ugly to look at, and some scenes hard to actually see what's happening. The action is at least well executed with some fights and a few exciting car chases. We also get some shootouts, but it needed more for the finale and maybe a climactic fight, which we never get. The music score is one of the best aspects of the film, with some nice percussion adding to a pervasive sense of threat despite a few entertaining moments. This feels like something we've all seen before, and this isn't a movie I have any desire to watch again. Overall, Blackall isn't a movie you need to rush to the cinema to see. It lacks any memorable set pieces, and the story takes too long to get where it needs to, making it lack thrills. It's maybe worth watching on Netflix, but otherwise, it's forgettable stuff. If Blacklight were any more generic, it would have a barcode instead of opening credits, and jettison its title in favor of a stenciled label Liam Neeson thriller. But if you approach it with sufficiently lowered expectations and have fond memories of the Sevens paranoid dramas that obviously inspired director and co-writer Mark Williams, this might be your house brand jam that might not be enough for you to rush inside a multiplex to catch this time killer during what likely will be a fleeting, only in theaters run Blacklight probably, will play best when it reaches its natural habitat on stream platform menus. Continuing his seemingly endless run as the action hero equivalent of Dad Jeans, Neeson brings his reliably effective, world-weary gravitas to the role of Travis, Block, a freelance fixer for FBI. Director and longtime buddy Gabriel Robinson, Quinn Block, is frequently tasked with extracting deep cover agents when their cover is blown, or perhaps more important, when they've spent too much time in the darkness to know their way out. An early scene illustrates Block's efficiency as he saves and when operative from a gun-wielding mob of what appear to be January 6th cosplayers before they can do her grievous bodily harm in a trailer park. Great solution. Distract the thugs by blowing up some of their trailers. But he's more seriously challenged when it comes to retrieving Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith, an agent, who's taken to self-medication with pills and boo in a vain attempt to salve his guilty conscience about misdeeds in the line of duty. Not that Crane wants to be extracted during the movie's opening minutes. We see him smiling approvingly while attending a campaign rally for a congressional candidate who seems to take political inspiration and fashion tips from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. When said candidate meets an untimely end after misplacing her trust in a rideshare driver, Crane is devastated because while he was on an undercover mission to keep tabs on her, get ready for it, fell in love with her, so he reaches out to Mira Jones, Emmy Raver-Lampman of the Umbrella Academy, reporter for a Washington, D.C.-based news website, to spill the beans about a dark conspiracy identified as Operation Unity. Not surprisingly, the FBI chief wants those beans to remain UNS spilled. Meanwhile, Block is seriously considering getting out of the extraction business, if only to spend more quality time with Amanda. CLA Vanderboom, his divorced daughter, and Natalie Gabriella Sangos, his PR Ias, granddaughter trouble is, Amanda is frankly concerned that her father's paranoia might be contagious. She still recalls the days when he would run background checks on her friend's parents, thereby making him a bad influence on her daughter. Block, of course, disagrees a little. Paranoia is healthy, and besides, he's already taught Natalie a lot about checking perimeters and looking out for strangers. Family concerns must take a backseat to professional chores for a while at least. When Robinson ignores Block's request for retirement and sends his fixer after Crane, one thing leads to another at a satisfyingly brisk pace, it should be noted, and Block eventually unearths, with a little help from Jones, the dark truth about Operation Unity. But wait, there's more. He does this without suffering the same fate that often befell inquisitive protagonists in the aforementioned 70s dramas. This is a Liam Neeson thriller. Remember, working from a script he co-wrote with Nick May Williams adds a few idiosyncratic elements to this. Warmed over stew of high-speed car chases and high-casualty gunfights, Block isn't merely paranoid. He's also obsessive-compulsive, a fact sometimes played for laughs, such as when he meticulously sorts his shoes in his closet and orderly arranges beer cans in his refrigerator, and other times not. His condition evidently has enhanced his ability to even the odds when outgunned. Jones is aggressively dedicated to truth, justice in the American way, but she's not blind to the career enhancement possibilities of writing clickbait, and you have to give Williams and Niss this much. Even they recognize that the actor may be approaching the end of his shelf. Life as an action hero. Crane actually runs out of breath during extended foot chases, and when he isn't quite able to best Crane in a fistfight, the younger man mocks him. You're slipping. You're losing your grip. Not yet, but soon more. Detail. Liam Niss needs to be stopped with his late-release Blacklight. He has officially worn out his charm as an action star and needs to either take a break or just stop entirely if possible. At one point, he was charming as the older lead of an action film taken, and its immediate sequels were exciting and clever enough that they worked, no matter who was in them. But the fact it was someone as talented and charismatic as Liam Niss elevated it. Then he started slipping and just repeating the formula with films like Honest Thief or the commuter films that lean so heavily on Liam's charm that it was almost inevitable that we'd hit this point, the point where it's just impossible to give a damn. Even if the plot isn't just another spin on the Taken formula, there's no more to give. Blacklight revolves around a grand conspiracy theory that starts when a political activist is killed in a hit and run. which seems to have been done by the FBI. At least that's what we can infer, because former FBI agent Dusty Crane, Taylor John Smith, is trying to contact a reporter, Mara Jones, Emmy Raver-Lampman, to tell her everything about something called Operation Unity, which is somehow involved in the murder. It would obviously be bad for the FBI if this happened. So Top Agent Travis Block Liam Niss is sent to get Dusty and bring him in before he can spill. But of course, Travis has a conscience and ends up siding with Dusty and me and tries to help them stop Operation Unity, whatever the hell that is. It's not exactly clear. If you want to see a political thriller made by people who are vaguely aware of what a political thriller involves, but don't have the ability to handle the pesky details that might make the genre interesting, still avoid Blacklight, because it's not even good at being that the incredible dedication to not doing anything remotely smart or interesting is kind of impressive. You have to try to fail at a genre this hard. The idea of a political thriller usually involves a fancy conspiracy that goes way up the chain and has a specific devious purpose, like keeping a corrupt prezi in charge or winning some election. But here, maybe the head of the FBI just kind of doesn't like you and then he has you killed. It's a political thriller, but somehow, with all actual politics removed, that's kind of impressive. But then you might end up going, well, okay, but cinema's too political anyway. Can we just have the thriller part? And to that, Blacklight laughs, because it's also not that thrilling for a film that contains several shootouts, a car chase involving a garbage truck, and a series of allegedly dramatic murders. It's kind of amazing how there's not that much that's actually thrilling. There's no need to hold your breath, because nothing shocking is going to happen. Characters you don't care about are going to be killed, and a main bad guy who isn't even memorable enough to be worth naming is going to just kind of exist because someone needs to take the fall at the end. But off-screen cost, why have a fun moment where the hero defeats the bad guy on camera? All of this boredom might work if you cared about anyone but Blacklight has no one worth caring about. You can tell Liam is just phoning it in at this point. The other cast are in it just enough that you technically have to give them a credit, but they don't really have characters worth caring about. The FBI guy who tries to reveal everything. Dusty Crane is a nothing character who is only memorable because he has unnaturally bright blue eyes. The reporter is there off to the side so that there's an excuse at some point to have the press tell the story. But that's it. She's not even in the climax, and they have to talk up her involvement as though it happened just off screen. Nothing and no one in this film matters. Dull characters with no real purpose of any kind, which makes for an absolutely exhausting watch, even. The few moments in Blacklight that have the potential to be interesting are ruined by being absolutely stupid and not in a fun way. For example, the chase scene involving the garbage truck could potentially be interesting, except the person in the garbage truck, Dusty Crane, is meant to be deep undercover and for no reason whatsoever chooses literally the biggest and most unwieldy vehicle possible for a car chase throughout town. It makes for a sequence where you just watch this idiot tearing through sidewalks and barely making turns while trying to escape in a vehicle that could maybe hit a solid 50 on a good day. It's a sequence designed to excite, but in practice, it just perplexes, because anyone actually trying to hide or get away from someone wouldn't use a garbage truck. It makes everyone involved look incredibly stupid, which in turn kills all tension that might have potentially existed. Blacklight is just a bad film start to finish. It's another on the long list of films where Liam Niss has a special set of skills to try and save people with, including family members. I forgot to mention them because they don't matter, and like a lot of films in that very specific subgenre, it stopped being interesting about a decade ago, and it now just kind of annoying. It's a slog to get through. The stakes are badly explained, and there's nothing interesting to explain why any of this is happening. It's such a dull film that It's almost impressive. Even the title is dull and meaningless because the word blacklight never appears in the film. Nor does anyone use a blacklight or even do some investigating that might at some point require one. Nothing about blacklight makes sense, and nothing about it is worth existing. We've hit the limit, Liam, for crying out loud. Just do something else because you're wearing your charm out, and I don't know if you're going to get any of it back at this rate. Blacklight is the latest, Liam, Neeson action vehicle to hit the big screen. A trend that's been going on for over a decade now, and you'd think these Neeson action films would become tiring, but I say bring them on while Neeson has gone all over the place with his action film career since his 2008 hit Taken. Blacklight falls somewhere in the middle, more of a story about the corruption in our federal bureau than a wholehearted action thriller. It still intrigued me enough to keep my attention for the 104-minute runtime. It might be attempting to be making a statement about our political system today or even yesterday, but it's difficult to tell if there is a meaning behind it all, because, whether aimed at something or not, it comes off as cliché. Fans of Liam Neeson will more likely get a kick out of. Neeson being a very similar badass he's been for the past decade or so versus people tired of the same old, same old. The only difference is he's also 10 plus years older than when he started kicking ass, but Blackall, whether by choice or by happenstance, displays a man that's still sly, but he's clearly less vital than he used to be. Any twist the film attempts to deliver can be called out before the title even shows itself. It's not the most original plot. In fact, it simulates what has been done on procedural television numerous times in the past. There's no mystery to what's happening. Blacklight is about as straightforward as you can make a thriller nowadays. And director Mark Williams' decision to add glitch SL lens flare effects at an opportune times throughout the feature certainly won't be turning any heads. Extra information: I'm deeply puzzled by why Liam Neeson continues to show up in second-rate action film. Now, to be fair, I enjoy him. As an actor, generally, I even enjoy Taken as well as kind of loving Cold Pursuit. At the same time, the last decade or so of Neeson's career has been dominated by the type of mediocre action movie you'd hope he'd be above. Blacklight is sadly more of the same for him. He appears bored while the production doesn't have much originality to set itself apart. It's all competently done, but without a whiff of passion or creativity. Rather quickly, it sinks under the weight of its own indifference. Blacklight is made to be passively consumed. It's the sort of thing you have watch on television that's all well and good. But this is meant to be a theatrical release, so it's wholly unacceptable, especially when there's such a litany of Neeson action outings to choose from. You really need to go above and beyond to stand out. This film, without question, does not do that. Operative one who knows how to get agents out of hairy situations. He's made a career out of it, while his close friend Gabriel Robinson, Aidan Quinn, has become FBI director. Black is wrestling with his murky past, one that has estranged him with his daughter and put at risk a relationship with his beloved granddaughter, of course. Just as he's planning to get out, something pulls him back in when he discovers a plot targeting U.S. citizens, one being whistleblown by a young agent in Dusty Crane. Taylor John Smith Block is torn between loyalty to his protege and to his country, while Dusty seeks out a journalist, Emmy Raver-Lampman, to help get the word out. Block investigates what he finds, puts himself in the crosshairs of the FBI director he once helped protect, and whom he considers perhaps his only friend. Liam Neeson is so much better than this movie. He's an expert at this kind of flick by now, so his sleepwalking through the role still has a bit of gravitas. But it's clear that he's bored. You buy him as a government fixer type, but never once does the script make his character come alive. He fares the best. However, as the likes of Aidan Quinn, Emmy Raver-Lampman, and Taylor John Smith are completely won. Note, Quinn at least gets a little scenery chewing, while the others are as bland and forgettable as they come. Supporting players include CLA Vanderboom, Gabriel SOS, and more. Co-writer-director Mark Williams makes everything in Blacklight competent but rarely engaging along with co-writers. Nick May and Brandon Reavis, the screenplay Williams is working with, periodically approaches an interesting point but backs away immediately. Interestingly, May is a former U.S. Department of Justice attorney during the Obama administration, which makes the lack of personality here even more striking. Williams' direction is uninspired as well, doubling down on the lack of engagement and style here. It's as if they landed Neeson and figured their work was done. Ultimately, Blacklight is the type of watchable mediocrity that you'd find late night on cable and get bored with. Before the end, there are certainly worse films out there, but without questions, there are superior ones, even in February. You can do much better. Unless you're a massive Liam Neeson fan, you need not apply here. Even then, there are better options for Neeson kicking some ass. Blacklight feels less like a movie than it does a hostage video. The tables have turned, and now it's Liam Neeson himself who needs someone to rescue him from the cinematic hamster wheel of violent revenge thrillers he can't seem to get off of. You don't even have to translate his eye blinks into Morse code or anything. The poor man isn't trying to hide how exhausted and trapped he is. It's sad. This time around, Neeson Ordinary Love Men in Black International is Travis, Block, a fixer who works for a shadowy FBI program that brings back deep cover agents when they get too caught up in their assignments. That's a potentially intriguing concept. So the movie proceeds to almost completely ignore it. Instead, it pivots to a completely different, shadowy FBI program that is doing extremely nefarious things that are even more extra legal than what Block is up to. This is illustrated in the opening sequence, in which a blatantly obvious stand-in for us Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio courts a wannabe us Congresswoman called Sophia Flores Mel Johnson, is treated in a way that is meant to be indicative of the lengths to which America's wealthy white male powers that be will go to prevent ordinary Americans from having nice things like racial, cheap, lazy plot device with misogynist and classist overtones that the film appears to believe it has given itself. Plausible deniability about it has not. Anyway, this program is what Block will eventually try to put a stop to cruelly, however, for Nis and for us before he can even get around to discovering what's really going on. He tries to quit this FBI stuff, which has made him an OCD. Paranoia, because he wants to spend more time with his daughter, CLA Vanderboom, and cute little granddaughter, Gabriella. Saying goes his resignation is denied that his boss, the head of the FBI, Aidan Quinn, Jonah Hex 9 Lives, refuses to let Block go, feels like a smack at the actor himself. Can't you all see how done he is with this crap? We could have all been saved from this movie. Calling Blacklight a thriller, as I accidentally did above, is a stretch. It's all tedious info dumps that in less cheap movies would have been fully fleshed out flashbacks, plus wrote gun battles and car chases through the Australian city of Cheeks. Notes CRA bizarrely and inexpertly standing in for Washington, D.C., which it does not resemble in the least parts of the movie, come across as unintentional parody. As when Block gives the granddaughter, who's maybe 6, a taser as a birthday present. Parts of it feel like they're papering over stuff that simply could not be dramatized because of pandemic restrictions. As when Block sits with a journalist, Emmy Raver-Lampman, the only one in the whole cast who comes alive in a nearly empty bar and just spills all his secret government ops beans to her. The entire movie feels strangely deserted physically, culturally, politically, psychologically, which only adds to the overall sense of its naive simpleness. Even its cynicism comes across as shallow. Blacklight wants us to buy rooted conspiracies, but can't even make us believe what it puts right in front of our eyes. This film, directed by Mark Williams, screenplay by Mark Williams, story by Brandon Reavis, produced by Mark Williams, Paul Myles, Nestel Leo, Coco Shelma, starring Liam Nis, Emmy Raver-Lampman, Taylor John Smith, Aiden. Quinn Cinematography, Shelley Johnson, edited by Michael P. Schur, music by Markham. Production companies, Zero Gravity Management, Footloose Productions, the Solution Entertainment Group, Cena Studio 4-Star Films, Elevate Production. Finance Film, Victoria Light, Stream Pictures Australia, Screen Australia, distributed by Rialto Distribution Australia, Briarcliff Entertainment. United States release, States February 10th, 2022, in Australia February 11th, 2022 in United States, running time 104 minutes. Countries, United States. Australia, China language, English budget $43 million, box office $16 million. So, guys, this is the review of Blacklight movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.